All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Andy Sokolovic. I am a Gallup certified strengths coach and the owner of UnleashStrengths.com, nestled right here in the small Midwest town of Clinton, Iowa. Thematics, which you're watching today, is a video series created by myself at Unleash Strengths to highlight the massive impact the StrengthsFinder assessment and the book StrengthsFinder 2.0 has had on now over 11 million users. I still have 10 written down here, but we're growing every day. Now we surpassed 11 million users. It's our belief here at Unleash Strengths that the best way to promote its effectiveness and the proven results is to interview those who've experienced the power of strengths-based development firsthand. Each person being interviewed as part of this broadcast is intimately aware of their strengths and wants nothing more than to share their strength story. For more information and to view a recorded version of this interview with a transcript, please visit UnleashStrengths.com. Or if you would like to schedule an interview, and we're always looking for new strengths enthusiasts to interview, go ahead and email me, Andy at UnleashStrengths.com, or give me a ring. I still have one of those phones, 815-441-2219. Again, that's 815-441-2219. Give us a call, shoot me an email, we'll schedule your interview. Hit us up on Facebook. That's right, we're cruising for likes. Facebook.com/Unleash Strengths. And, you know, one of the cool things I love about this is I get to interview people from all over the world. And it's amazing how far Strengths has grown. And today is no exception. Today I have Wynand Jacobs with me, and he is willing to sit down with us. What is it, 6 o'clock your time, 6 p.m.?
6 p.m., that's right.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce us, tell us where you're from, and then just tell us a little bit about your life.
All right, thanks so much, Andy. Yeah, I'm from South Africa, a little town called Klerksdorp. Originally grew up in Pretoria. I don't know, maybe you've heard of that before. But yeah, I've got my top 5 strength is with my core developer. All right, so just really knowing that, learning that about myself has changed my life completely. But just to give you a quick introduction, my top 5: developer, strategic, ideation, input, and adaptability. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I haven't heard of either of the towns that you're from, but hey, growing up, I barely got outside of New Jersey, so I'm not a worldly traveler, but it's always just amazing to interview people from South Africa. You're the second interview now I've done from South Africa, so I'm glad to see that there's a very strong strengths present there. So tell us a little bit about who introduced you to StrengthsFinder, and why. How did it come to enter your life? How did you find out about it?
Okay, Andy. Well, so maybe about 2 years ago, one of my friends, in a big group of friends that we have, we saw each other many times. We we had this commune where some of the people lived, and then all of us, we would always go there and visit and have gatherings and make meals together. And one of our friends actually became a strength coach. All right,
Wow.
so everyone was sort of doing their top 5 assessment, going for the coaching, and the conversation was just buzzing. Every time people would talk about the strengths, and I was a little bit, objective in the beginning about that. I wasn't too fond of the idea of, putting yourself in a box and, just finding your strengths. I was all, I was maybe the pioneer or the forerunner for becoming all a well-rounded person, working on your weaknesses, getting that up to par. You can be anything you want to be. So I was very skeptic at first. And then maybe at the end of most of my friends going through the assessment, getting the coaching and having this discussion, I said, let's give it a go. So yeah, that's basically how I got introduced to it. So I decided to take the test, go for the coaching, and it was really an amazing journey.
Yeah, that's great. So you kind of had a preview. I mean, you're sitting there, you're watching all your friends take the assessment, and then the really cool thing about StrengthsFinder is finally, we all kind of knew what we were good at. We all kind of understood our talents and our strengths, but sometimes it was very hard for us to vocalize that, to communicate that. So because we never had a verbiage, we never had a language to use. And one of the cool things about StrengthsFinder is within the 34 talent themes, it's provided us with those terms. So now we can easily communicate that, and you were able to do that within a group of friends. So, and
Yeah.
I do I like that you said, watching people take the assessment, you didn't want to be in a compartment or a silo, or you didn't want somebody to define you as just these 5 themes. And one of the cool things is I had that very same thought when I initially took the assessment, because I would just assume that this was going to be some kind of thing that told me who I was supposed to be, what job I should have. And really, StrengthsFinder is not so much putting you in a silo or a box. It's kind of just providing you with some insight into who you really are and what your dominant talents are. Now, you can do whatever you want with that information, but a lot of that stuff is never going to be revealed unless you tap into it through some kind of tool. And that tool for me was StrengthsFinder.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Andy. Sorry, just on that thought, I think in the past I viewed the top 5 and the strengths as just a box, and I don't want to get stuck on that, but I want to work on my weaknesses. Become better at the things that I'm not good at. So I was running with that idea for most of my life, probably.
Yeah. Well, now that's a good lead into my next question. So, since that day, what does your life look like? How has the transformation kind of taken place? Can you describe it to us from the time that you started just concentrating on working on your weaknesses and repairing those areas of your life to then embracing your natural talents?
Yes, so I remember very well sitting on the balcony of my friend who was my strength coach's. We were sitting there on the balcony and having this discussion, and we had just discovered that my one of my top 5 is developer. We've discussed my top 5, and we've just discovered my core talent to be developer. Mm-hmm. And I was just amazed at this conversation that I was having with my coach, and to think that, wow, there is a career like this, like coaching. And I actually realized that I was doing a lot of things in my life. I was, at that stage, I was giving guitar lessons. I quit my job and I was giving guitar lessons, and the energy came from the developer. I love nurturing growth. I love seeing the steps that people take towards their growth, and I'm very patient with that. So sitting there, discovering that about myself, I realized that, not only was I passionate about that, or not only did it come so naturally to me, I think I might just add in at this stage, developing people and helping people develop came so naturally to me that I never developed my people helping skills as such. So, I was always messing around, trying to fix my weaknesses, trying to become better at those things that I'm not good at. I had this idea that we all need to become well-rounded. So yeah, I think definitely since that day, the shift, the emphasis moved in my life from trying to fix my weaknesses to really adding skill, developing skill in the areas of my strengths and my talents.
Right. And I always tell, just like your story kind of reveals, StrengthsFinder is initially a very selfish tool, and it should be. I mean, it should be, because not often do we take the time to really develop our own talents and strengths, because like you said, your developer was steering you towards the helping others, which was amazing, yet you were really missing. You had kind of that blind spot where you were missing the fact that you needed to develop your own talents first. And it's kind of like one of the interviews I did with the gentleman by the name of Nathaniel Small. He said, it's like when you go on a flight and that flight attendant says, put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. It just makes sense. I think that's a great comparison, and it kind of really ties in nicely with what your story was. So great. Did you have the aha moment? I mean, maybe you talked about it a little bit when you were sitting on the balcony with your friend, but did you have that moment where you realized, hey, this tool has some traction? I mean, this is real. This actually works, and it helps people develop their own talents.
Yes, definitely, Andy. I think thinking back to that moment, I took the assessment maybe a day or two before we had the discussion, and I remember going through the assessment, reading all these things about me, and sort of my jaw just dropping at how accurate, these reports are describing me. And I actually went through the detailed reports. I know a lot of the people that take the test, they do the short summary. I went through the detailed reports, and when I got to my coach, he said, like, you're one of the first guys that ever that has ever gone through the detailed reports before coming for a coaching session. And he was actually a bit surprised, but just reading the reports, sort of, as you mentioned earlier, this building this vocabulary to describe myself, describe my, we define a talent as a recurring pattern of thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So to be able to describe these thoughts, these feelings, and behavior, and maybe to identify them, has changed my life completely. I think that if I had to sort of just give one aha moment, I think the shift from thinking that I have to fix my weaknesses to a place where I realized, these are my strengths. These are the things that really come naturally to me, and this is sort of the way that I have been, shaped throughout my life. Moving to a place where I could tap into that and say, this is who I am. I'm going to make myself stronger and sharper in these areas, as opposed to, fixing the places where I'm not good at. I think that for me was the biggest aha moment, and actually since that day, I became a coach. So well, not since that day. Since that day, I had the desire to become a coach. So I found out later on from my coach, how did he become certified? What was the process? I actually did we have a company here in South Africa called Strengths Institute, and they do a lot of work. I think outside of the US, they have qualified the most coaches in the entire world. So they do a great job with their coach training, and I learned so much, at that training. And that was maybe a starting point for me working, say, maybe adding the skill to my developer talent. So that really enabled me, to build that vocabulary, to understand strengths inside and out, to be able to have strength discussion with people that I see, whether it's in a coaching environment or maybe just a one-on-one discussion, and that has really enabled me to become a lot better at developing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the Strengths Institute there in South Africa, and I cannot say enough about that organization. They've done some amazing things, and I cruise around the website, and they're offering their coaches just solid resources, solid education, and they're preparing them and giving them all the tools they need to go out and help other people realize their natural talents. So kudos to that again. So how do you use, other than, we talked about it now professionally, you're doing some coaching, but how would you say, can you give us a glimpse into how strengths is kind of interweaved in your everyday life? So do you walk around, do you and your family, your friends, your significant other, do you speak a lot about strengths? Do you use the terminology every day?
Okay, so I'm actually thinking of two stories now that I can tell you about that.
Go ahead.
In South Africa, we the coaching industry is not that big industry yet, and there's still a lot of ground to be broken up for the coaching industry. So for me, I wasn't able to really go into coaching full time. It's always been a thing I'm building on the side, always doing other jobs, keeping things going. Mm-hmm. And I was working at one stage in a factory. We manufactured kitchen cupboards. We did the installations, a bit of construction work, and I did some programming of the CNC cutting machines in the factory. And a lot of what I did throughout the day wasn't really focusing on my talents. And I would come home after a day of work, quite drained. Would be down and out. And what I said when I took that job, because you don't always know what you're letting yourself into, and if you are going to be able to play to your strengths. But I remember very well that one thing I held on to was my guitar students at that stage. So I would work, let's say 8 to 4 is our working hours here in South Africa, and come home at about just before 5 o'clock, and then from just after 5 to just about 7, just about 2 hours of teaching guitar, I would be right back up there. That the energy I drew from tapping into my developer talent, just that 2 hours of development and the ability to, help someone else develop, really just restored my energy, and I was ready to take on a whole nother day. So in terms of that, I really realized how to, when I maybe did not have such a great day, think about my strengths and do something that, activates that can energize me. That is the one story. The other story is my wife and I recently got married in November of last year. We had been talking about strengths for about the time that I've been involved in the strengths movement. She has also done her assessment, her top 5. But at first, the conversation didn't go as deep. We would spend some time talking, and I can also honestly say that if it weren't for strengths, we wouldn't have been married, because the strengths gave us such a big vocabulary to discuss our differences, and to be able to understand our differences, and where we used to clash at every difference, because I know she doesn't have a 34 report, but some of my non-patterns in my bottom 5 and bottom 10 is actually some of her patterns in her top 5. So that is really, it can really cause some clashes. But just understanding that, just having the vocabulary to communicate that, has changed our relationship. I mean, like I said, we're married now, and we've worked through so many things together, and today we're an excellent team. Like, she really brings out the best in me, and the areas where my strengths maybe need some filling, she just comes along, and she sort of, just provides all of that, all of the, let's say, maybe the shortcomings that my strengths pose. So, yeah.
Yeah, those are 2 great stories, and I have to really relate with the second one, because my wife and I are very similar. She, again, she doesn't have, like you stated, she doesn't have her full 34 report, but I do know, looking at my full 34 report, that where she compensates everything that I have towards the bottom, my lesser talents, and those rise to the top for her. So I think it's kind of neat how we just naturally gravitate towards individuals who we form a well-balanced relationship with. And for anybody who thinks that there's still a lot to be said for focusing on your weaknesses and constantly striving to get better in areas that you're weak, I mean, this kind of proves that we're just, it's a natural extension of ourselves to kind of find those people who balance us out. And it's just amazing how quick it works. It's magnetic almost. So awesome. 2 awesome stories. So what if we talked a little bit about your initial objections or defenses towards taking the assessment. You didn't want to be put in a compartment, and that's how you felt in the beginning. But so do you hear anything when you approach somebody and you say, hey, there's an assessment out there, it's called the Clifton Strengths Finder, and I really think it would be beneficial for you to take and share with me your top 5. What kind of reactions do you get from people? I often hear, oh, not another assessment, or not another personality test. Do you hear that often? And if so, how do you respond?
Well, yes, I do get that often. I've actually started to sort of downplay the assessment a bit in my discussion. So I would talk about just naturally talk about some of my strengths and some of my wife's strengths and the differences that they pose, and how we have actually been able to, manage our differences. And I think just having an awareness of another person's strength helps you to have a little bit more grace, in that area. I try, and when I talk to someone about that, I try and really sort of put a very small emphasis on the test. I talk about this experience. I talk about this life-changing experience, and when they pose interest, I say, well, it's a test. So for me, I've moved away to putting the emphasis on the test. I put the emphasis on growing and learning and knowing more about other people, and obviously because I also do the coaching, I try and describe how the whole process adds value to your life. And but then again, all my coaching processes, I always start with a strengths finder assessment. I have different tools in my toolbox, but I still feel that strengths is one of the best tools that can take me very deep, because it's based on a behavioral level. It gives me a lot of inside info to a person I'm coaching, and I think it is why it's one of my preferred tools, at least for a start. And then obviously later on throughout the process we can combine it. But as I've mentioned, and I'm probably repeating myself now, but I tend to sort of get the test in there with a little bit of a left hook, because people are naturally afraid to be boxed in, to be labeled, to be told that this is your top 5, this is what this is the box I'm going to put you into. Recently, someone just shifted my paradigm according to that as well, with the idea that we're afraid of being labeled, but you will always be labeled. So sometimes people will view you as maybe that guy that always talks about strengths, or maybe that guy that always drinks his coffee with 2 sugars, or whatever the case may be. You will always have some kind of label. So why not have the correct label? Right. Why not get to a place where you are able to communicate your strengths, and you are able to say, well, this is who I am. If you want to label me in this manner. If you want to use me on these types of projects. And I mean, yeah.
No, I really like that, because I don't think Wynand that anybody would ever be, or you would be upset if somebody came up and said, hey, there's that Wynand Jacobs guy. He's the guy that always develops people into better people. Look at that guy over there. I mean, it's one of those things where if you said it correctly and right, hit the nail on the head. If you want to be labeled, then choose that label for yourself and kind of run with it. And I think you're right. It's strengths is a very, what I like about Strengths Finder is it's not very broad and confusing. It's very focused and deep, and I love that. Like I think of like a big well drill, just drilling down. The diameter's not huge. I mean, you don't have to look at it from a broad perspective, because the concept is we've distilled down top 5, but you can take that top 5 and you can just hammer it down deep and really define yourself as the person you are, and I think that's why I absolutely love it. So that was some great advice. I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to answer this next one, but we'll see. Out of your top 5, what do you think is your most favorite, or what do you think is your most dominant?
Okay. Well, I might surprise you now. I think we talk about a core talent, so we try and define. I don't know if the training that Gallup provides is the same, but we always define a core talent as a sort of a funnel. All right, so a funnel throughout which every other talent, it sort of gives a flavor to my other talents. All right, so as I've mentioned, my core is a developer, and it sort of gives a flavor to my ideation. my ideation will always be channeled in the direction of developing. My input would always be challenged in the direction of developing. But to answer the question about maybe what my favorite strength is and the one I like the most, I'd actually have to go with strategic. In the last maybe couple, let's say maybe 10 months to a year, I've actually realized how much the strategic comes to play in my life. Just comparing my actions, the way I see things, the way I sort of naturally choose the best option, naturally see all the different options, the different routes, and am able to make a decision very quickly. Where I'm at a situation where obviously growing very close to a single person, as I mentioned, I'm recently being married, and it's a big life-changing event. You get to know someone very intimately, grow very close, and you share a lot of your thought processes. So I think I've realized recently how much part of me that the strategic really is, and how I look at some data, I look at a scenario that is placed in front of me, and in an instant I just view the options. I see the different options. I choose one, and I'm able to go for it. And in the past, I used to think that everyone is like that. People, it's obvious. It's one of the probably the most, in talking to people about their strength, it's like, but doesn't everyone do that? Mm-hmm. So I think I really, to answer your question, I'm very fond of my strategic talent, and I realize just how privileged I am to be able to tap into that. And I think it might be something that in the past I took for granted, but I'm really loving the strategic talent.
I like what you said about core talents and or single core talent that kind of operates or acts as the tip of a spear. I mean, it's the leader, and I think for me, now you got me thinking about what my core talent would be, and I think for myself, communication would be my core talent, and why that is my number 5. Without the ability to communicate, my others kind of are tempered. They're less sharp. They're less aggressive. So, but once I start communicating with people, that's when everything activates. Obviously, my woo follows that. Obviously, my strategic comes in strong when I can communicate with my ideation and ideas. So I love how you said that, because I don't believe I've ever heard that before. I may have and missed it, but I really, really like that. And honestly, I'm going to use that in my strengths discussions here in the States, because I think that's a really good insight into how the top 5 work together. So I like that. Thanks for sharing that.
Awesome.
So looking back, and this is a very introspective question, I mean, it requires a little bit of thought, and I always have this one at the very end because I like to see the reaction of the people that I'm interviewing. So looking back, how do you think your life would be different today if StrengthsFinder and the concept of strengths-based development never entered it, never really came into your view? You never heard about it. You never took the assessment. You never realized your top 5. How do you think your life would be different today?
Well, Andy, I think about that question, and it almost scares me. I almost don't want to think about it, because right. Just the fullness of life I'm experiencing at this moment. Obviously, there are a lot of things that come into play, but the discovery of strengths and the discovery of my strengths, and maybe the decision and the action to move in that direction has really just opened up doors for me in my life. As I mentioned, just after taking the assessment, I think it was about 3 months after that, I went for the training. I did my qualifying assessments with people I interviewed, I coached, and I actually just finished up last year with a life coaching course. I did it was called Business and Executive Coaching, and I've been just adding onto this thing of the people helping profession. And for me, looking back, if I had not defined myself as a developer, I would probably just be, going about what I was doing. I was passionate about what I was doing. At that stage, I was giving guitar lessons. So I was tapping into that developer. But I think where I am today, it has helped me filter so many of my decisions. So I think the knowledge of or maybe not the knowledge, the awareness of my own strengths has helped me make smarter decisions in my life. Decisions that at the end of the day leave me feeling fulfilled. Whereas before, I would make a decision based on certain criteria. I think money was normally also criteria, and you sort of miss a lot of things. You just think about maybe how can I be successful financially, and you don't always think about the actual. You might think about the actual work that you are doing, but you never think about the type of behavior you would be doing while doing your work. So I think filtering whatever I do through behavior has changed so much for me, and I'm able to even do things that I don't like by changing the way I do them to sort of fit in with my strengths.
Yeah, and that's the key right there. I mean, the Gallup always refers to it as looking through a lens of strength or through the lens of talent, and being able to see things that are approaching you or you're approaching, and how you're going to, what kind of course of action are you going to take to get the best results by using your talents. And this is why we created this show. I mean, Unleashed Strengths is obviously a labor of love of my own, but Thematics has grown into something so cool because I get the opportunity to meet people, again, all over the world, but people who just embrace their talents, embrace the concept of strengths-based development, and notice a massive return on their investment. And it's so neat to hear these, quote-unquote success stories, because I think people, whether they're tiptoeing around, the assessment or tiptoeing around the concept, I want to give them that little shove in the lower back that says, go for it, do it. This is your opportunity to learn more about yourself. And I think through this interview process and stories just like your own, that helps people get more comfortable and become more confident. So thank you for taking the time today to share your story with us.
Absolutely. And Andy, thank you for having the show, and thank you for having me on the show. I think just if I can give a little bit of a shout out to anyone listening, anyone wondering, should I take the assessment? I'm like, it's a couple of bucks. It's not expensive. You've probably spent a lot of money in your life on junk that has not, taken you forward or improved your way of being. So, I can say go for it. Take the test. Find a coach. Have the discussion. What have you really got to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And, a lot of people are scared about taking self-help. I don't ever label StrengthsFinder as self-help. I always call it self-activation. Because, I'm not looking to get help. I'm looking for somebody to kind of light that fuse and activate my inner strengths, and I think that's what it does. And it's just an amazing tool, and I'm so glad to have the opportunity to speak with you about it. And if, send people my way. I mean, if you got anybody else from down there in South Africa or anybody that's certified through the Strengths Institute and wants to talk strengths and create a video, send them my direction. I always love to just sit down and talk with people, so it's amazing.
Awesome. I'll do that.
All right. Well, to hear more about StrengthsFinder and watch some more episodes of Thematics, visit our website, unleashstrengths.com, and just click on the Thematics tab. We're also available on iTunes. That's right, folks. We have reached the big time, the Apple iTunes. So just go to iTunes, search Thematics, THEME-addicts, and you'll be able to find our podcast. And I do apologize. We've had some issues with episodes from our other podcast, Tech for Coaches, being filtered into that feed as well. So we're working on that. So if you see some stuff in there that doesn't look like it belongs, just kind of ignore it, move on to the next thing. But Thematics is the show for you. And use this. If you're a coach and you're listening to this broadcast and there's some things that either I or anybody that I interview say that helps you kind of promote strengths awareness, use it, grab it, copy and paste it, run with it, because the whole focus of this movement is to get people to realize that there's much more power in developing your talents and your strengths than focusing on your weaknesses. If you want to get in touch with me to schedule an interview for yourself, Andy at unleashstrengths.com. Again, Andy at unleashstrengths.com, or hit me up on the phone, 815-441-2219. All right, that's it for this episode of Thematics. Join us next time. We'll be live on the air again on the 27th of January, and I don't know the time, but check your Facebook listings. I'll have it up there, and we'll be interviewing another gentleman from outside the United States. So really cool that we're going global. That's it. This is Andy from unleashstrengths.com. Take it easy. See ya.